Let me share with you 3 of my best all-time driver videos. You know, driving doesn't have to be that complicated, especially when you get some of the secrets that I'm going to share with you here. Let's go and get started. What if I told you something as simple as the way you set your feet up at address when you're hitting your driver could be costing you 20 or 30 yards off the tee? Well, I'm going to walk through exactly how your body should properly work in the golf swing, some things that could really be limiting your range of motion, making you feel tight, making you hit it shorter, and the correct ways to set up properly. That way you're free, you're loose, and you pick up some serious distance. Let's go and get started. All right, so I got Q here. He's gonna be manning the flight scope. I'm gonna hit a couple shots with some various foot positions, and let's see how that can affect the distance. So first of all, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna set up and talk about what's going on in the swing. So let's talk about the backswing first. So as I swing to the top, what's happening is my hips are rotating, and let's imagine my feet are perfectly square to the camera. As my hips rotate, essentially what's happening is my feet are turning in. So if I didn't have my hips rotate, this is what my feet are doing in the backswing. So my hips are staying here, my feet are doing that in the backswing. In my downswing, my feet are doing this. Actually, I would be like that at the finish of my swing. Kind of looks goofy when you don't rotate your hips, but that's exactly what's going on. Now the problem is, most players that I see, especially if you get a little bit up in age, have a really tough time from this hip socket internally and externally rotating their feet. That can throw the brakes on your swing speed. Let's start with the backswing. So if I'm just looking at my left foot first, in the backswing, it's pretty easy to rotate and make a good turn if my left heel comes slightly off the ground. So that's gonna, if I keep my heel on the ground, I try to rotate, my hips can only go to here. If I let them slightly lift a little bit, and we're not talking a ton, maybe an inch, half inch, whatever, just loosen that up, that's going to allow my hips to rotate more. So in the backswing, if you've been taught this idea or have this idea that you want to keep your feet firmly planted to the ground, I think that's really going to limit your range of motion. It's really going to hurt your distance. So when you're swinging back, particularly with the left foot, let it loosen up a little bit. Let your left knee loosen up a little bit. I don't have to keep it locked and rigid and straight ahead. I can let that kick in a little bit. That allows my hips to rotate more. That allows my body to rotate more. But let's put it to the test. Let me hit one now, keeping my left foot down with the idea that I'm gonna keep my feet pretty rigid. So I'm gonna keep my feet straight, not a lot of movement, and I'm gonna go ahead and give one a good rip. There we go, pretty solid, dead straight, not a bad looking shot. What are the numbers on that one, Q?
Got 112 club head speed and 267 carry.
So not too bad, 112 and 267. That doesn't mean that if you're swinging 80 miles an hour, this isn't going to help. That doesn't mean that it's straight applicable. So when I loosen up the hip or loosen up the left foot, I bet I'm going to see a distance gain, a swing speed gain. The same thing would be happening if we're swinging 80 miles an hour or if we're swinging 150 miles an hour. It doesn't matter what you're swinging. It just matters what your body is doing to get the most out of that. So let's go ahead and try one now where I do what I just talked about. I loosen up that left heel a little bit. It allows my hips to turn more. It's going to allow my shoulders to turn more. And let's see what that does to my swing speed. There we go. Almost an exact straight line. Another nice straight one there. And I think I swung a little faster on that one. What's the flight scope say?
Yeah, 119.5 club head speed. Carry distance was 297.3.
Okay, so I picked up about 30 yards more distance by loosening that left heel. The reason there is it allows my body to move freely. It allows me to load up more so that I can generate speed in a more efficient way. Think of like a Fred Couples or a Davis Love III. Those aren't tight, rigid, short, compact swings. Those are nice and free-flowing. That's how Fred Couples still booms it out there, even though he's in his 60s now. That's exactly how he's doing that. Now let's take a look at the other foot, the right foot. Or actually, let's focus in on left foot on the finish now. We talked about how to loosen up a little in the backswing. What about in the follow-through? Well, when I come to my follow-through, if my hips are rotating this way, my foot is staying straight forward, it's tough to rotate my hips much past this. If you're a little bit up in age, maybe you're a little tighter, it's probably gonna be tough to get here. Maybe you'd be lucky to rotate your hips this much without that front foot kind of blocking them. That's because what's happening in the follow through is essentially my front foot is doing that. I know it looks crazy again, but that's internal rotation coming from the hip socket. A great way to test that is to go ahead and hold your foot up in the air rotate your foot inward and see how far you can go without moving your hips. Rotate your foot outward and see how far you can go. That's how much you can rotate your hips with keeping your feet flat. If you find that you're limited at all when you turn it in, then you really need to flare this foot out. So if I start now, instead of my foot being straight forward, and I can only go to here, what happens if I rotate my foot, say 20 or 30 degrees open? Now I can go all the way to here before it's neutral, and then I can really rotate much more in the follow through. So that's a quick, easy cheat to be able to get some more swing speed if you're a little tight, or if you'd like to be a little freer in your swing. So I'd start with a normal setup, feet forward, rotate that foot a good 20, 30, even 45 degrees if you're super tight. If you're super tight, I'd love to see the front foot like this. If you put the front foot like that and you keep it there, the distance is gonna go down the tubes. It's not gonna be good. So let me go ahead and try to do another one. I'll even exaggerate here with that left foot open, and I'll see what happens. There we go, another good swing. And I really felt like in my follow through, definitely a lot more freed up with that front foot rotated out. What was the numbers on that one, Q?
119.8 club head speed, and carry distance was 287.9.
Okay, so I'm carrying them, 20, 30 yards farther by being able to rotate through, picking up about 7 miles an hour more distance. Now the last one here, let's talk about the right foot, particularly in the backswing. We'll go over the downswing too, but most importantly the backswing. If my right foot is straight forward again like this, as I rotate in the backswing, I can only turn my hips a very small amount if I'm not very flexible. Again, do the test. Hold your foot up, try to internally rotate it. I don't want to rotate my hips like this. Keep my hips straight and try to rotate that left foot. If I can only go to say here, you gotta flare that foot out. By having that right foot a little more opened up, or this way in the backs or at address, that allows you to rotate more and get more swing speed and feel free and easy and like your swing is smooth while you're doing that. So do the test. I recommend playing that back foot kind of flared out a little bit here in the address position. Finally, when you're following through, same as the left foot, I've got to get this foot to swivel around. If I keep this foot on the ground as I come into my follow through, that's like taking a brake on your entire body and just locking it down. It's like having an anchor attached to this leg. You're going to be slow, slow, slow. I want to go ahead and get that foot to rotate all the way through, all my spikes up in the air, so now my hips and my shoulders and my body can come on through that. So if you do that, again, you're going to free up your swing and you're going to have more distance than you thought was possible. Let's go ahead and give it a whirl. All right, another good one there, kind of down the left edge of the fairway. Same thing, I'm guessing probably the swing speed is around 119 and kind of similar numbers.
Yep, right on the dot, 119 mile per hour club head speed on that one. Carry distance went up to 296.9.
Okay, so not too bad, happy with those. Now, I talked a lot about the setup position. What about the rest of the swing, Q? What do you see that can really help people add an extra 5 or 10 miles an hour?
Right, so everything Clay talked about there was all to get you to increase your range of motion, to create more space and time to accelerate the club. And that's all done in the lower body. Now what we want to do is see what we can do with our upper body to be able to achieve the same kind of thing. So what we can do is actually elevate our arms more. So if we go over here, I want you to get in kind of a flat top of the backswing position, where your arms would be really flat, kind of in the same angle as your shoulders here. You see like Matt Kuchar to be kind of in this kind of position here. You notice how his elbow here is kind of cinched toward his side a little bit. We probably all heard we want to be connected in the swing, but we actually don't want to be connected at the top of the swing, because what happens is it can restrict how much time and space we have to accelerate the club. See how low the arms are here? It's hard to create much acceleration in the club to do that. So what we can do is elevate the arms. See how his trail arm here is now disconnecting from his body. His elbow might even fly a little bit, which is completely fine.
Yeah, like Jack Nicklaus, somebody like that, has a flying elbow.
Bubba Watson, he's up here, way up here like Bubba Watson. There's a reason why Bubba Watson's one of the top guys on the tour in driving distance every single year, because he gets his hands really, really up high here. So what you want to feel like, if you go back to address here, that you want to feel like you're lifting the arms up. You're not just rotating as you're going back, but you're also lifting at your shoulders here, just like that, exactly. So if you have that same kind of feeling that you're lifting, think Ferris wheel, lifting and rotating, instead of a merry-go-round where you're just kind of turning around. If you have that right kind of feeling and let the arm disconnect from the body, let the elbow fly a little bit, that's going to allow you to get the hands really nice and high and allow you to get a lot of speed at impact. So Clay, how about you do one where you do a nice flat one where you can get, you get that good rotation, but get a flat swing where, and see what kind of numbers we get there, and then do one where you get that same good rotation, but you get the hands nice and high so we can get more space and time.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused on this too. They're thinking that we would say, hey, Matt Kuchar, can't hit it very far. Well, Matt Kuchar hits it pretty far. If you're big and strong and fast and a good athlete, you're going to be able to still hit it far no matter what your hand height is in the backswing. But Matt Kuchar could hit it a lot farther. I mean, he does a lot of things basically ideal, perfect. It was a really good swing, and he could have another 10 miles an hour possibly if he got those hands a little bit higher. So let's go ahead and try it out here, and let's do the flatter type swing with it more round in the body. Ooh, I hit that one nice and solid right down the middle of the fairway, or kind of right side of the fairway. I'm not going to be able to do a ton better than that on kind of the low hand swing. What was my numbers on that one, Q?
So 107.6 club head speed, 293 total distance, and that's with a 1.5 smash, so you really can't hit it much better than that. That's about as good as you can do.
So if you're big and tall and strong and you're already hitting it, 300 yards, and you're using the flat swing, hey, that's fine. You could hit it farther, but maybe distance isn't really a key for you. If you're swinging 90 miles an hour and struggling with distance, maybe that would be better to try out kind of the higher hands type swing like we're talking about here. So in this one, I'm going to feel like my hands almost like there's a ceiling above me, and I'm just going to punch my hands straight up through the ceiling. If you watch this on video, you're going to see that's not really what it's looking like. My hands aren't that high. It looks like a really nice normal swing, but that's the sensation or the feeling that you want to have when you're trying this out. Ooh, that may have been the best one of the day. Definitely felt faster there, and the ball is just carrying a lot longer on that particular swing. So freed everything up. What was the difference in the numbers there?
So 122 club head speed, total distance was almost 320.
Okay, so you can definitely see I started out with my shorter, more restricted swing, 107, got all the way up to 122. So that's 15 miles an hour of swing speed that I gained by freeing up my swing. And I don't know how many yards it was, probably almost 30, 40, 50 yards, something like that. A lot more distance. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be swinging over 100 miles an hour for this to take place. I've seen hundreds of golfers that are swinging 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour. Those same principles will add 15, 16 miles an hour of swing speed to your swing and 30 or 40 yards. If you're swinging 80 miles an hour, maybe you get up to 96. If you're swinging 90, maybe you get up to 106. So these same principles are universal. They're going to help you to swing faster, make golf a lot easier. Now I have got a fantastic video for you. A lot of videos you're going to see are just going to give you tips and recommendations, but they're not going to test if you're actually able to do that. As we get a little bit up in age, maybe we don't have the range of motion, the flexibility that we once had. Let's put that to the test. Let's see what your range of motion is, and then build a swing for you that's going to fit that range of motion. Let's go and get started. All right, so piece number one, we have to rotate in the backswing. So we talk about, in the Top Speed Golf system, the power turn, which basically means that if I take a club, put it across my shoulders, I want to load up my hips and my shoulders and my body, get a good full shoulder turn in the backswing, and then the downswing, I want to go ahead and rotate all the way on around to a good full finish. That's great. Everybody would love to do that. We'd all love to look like Justin Thomas or Adam Scott, but can we physically do this with our body? And I got a great test for you and a cheat that's going to make this easier if you fail the test. So let's put this club across our shoulders again. The club's going to go on the tips of the shoulders here, kind of on the edges, and then put your fingertips across there and hold this club in place. I want the grip side of the club pointing out from my left shoulder. Now here, this will be rotating level with the ground. We're going to go ahead and hinge down in our posture so that as we rotate, I want this club pointing, somewhere from the golf ball to a little bit outside the golf ball. I put this orange stick on the ground to kind of give me a zone of where I want the tip of this club to be pointing if I do this correctly. Now what I want you to do is keep your heel firmly planted against the ground. Don't lift that heel at all. And as you rotate to the top of your swing, go as far as you can with that heel still on the ground. Now to do this, if you can let that right leg straighten up a little bit, that's going to help to rotate the hips. And you want to feel like your weight shifts a little bit to the right as that's happening. Go as far as you can go without lifting that heel off the ground. Now, if you're in, say, the first half of the stick, that would be kind of the okay zone, not the best, but I'd probably like to get a little bit more. If you're over here on this half of the stick or farther back, that's fantastic. You're doing great. You don't have to do anything else. What that's telling me is that if I can keep my heel on the ground and get all the way back over here, then I can really make a good power turn, a good full swing without having to make any adjustments. If I'm here and I'm short of the golf ball, absolutely 100%, you're gonna have to make some adjustments here. So if I'm in the middle or in the front back here, I wanna go ahead and lift that heel up to go a little farther. So repeat this drill again. Again, hinge forward, don't lift that heel at all. And now from here, go as far as you can and then lift your left heel a little bit and you'll notice how you can get another 15, 20 degrees. So we're gonna test ourselves, see what zone we can get into. And ideally, I'd like for us to get, with lifting that heel, get somewhere back here in this zone. At least 2 feet behind this golf ball, if that's possible. Now for some players, that may need to be even more exaggerated. Maybe I need to lift the heel like Jack Nicklaus or Johnny Miller to make that happen. Those guys are pretty good. That's a pretty good swing. They won some major championships with those swings, so nothing wrong with having to lift your heel that much. That's just gonna help you to work with your own range of motion. Now let's put this to the test. I got my flight scope out here. Let me try one without a heel lift and with heel lift, and let's see how much distance there is between those two swings. Okay, swing number one, we're gonna go heel down. It's gonna limit my shoulder turn a little bit. Let's see what kind of club head speed we get. Hey, not bad. Hit that one right down the left center of the fairway. Hit that pretty solid. So that should be a nice shot. This will be a great test. Now we'll go swing number two. I'm gonna lift that left heel up. Let's see what kind of club head speed we can get on this one. There we go. Just down the left edge of the fairway. So those will be a great test because those were hit fairly similarly. Now swing number one, I got 112.8 miles an hour. Not bad. 272 total distance. Not my best drive ever, but definitely not a bad drive. Swing number two, I got 118, so 6 miles an hour faster, and 292. So you can see, no matter if you're swinging 70 miles an hour, lifting that heel may get you to 78. If I'm swinging 150 miles an hour, it may get me to 158. So it really doesn't matter how fast you're swinging. These same principles help you to get more speed. Let's take it to the next piece. It's gonna make your swing a lot easier. All right, piece number two, how high should I lift my arms? And again, if we don't test this, we don't really know if we're even able to do this. A lot of players will have shoulder problems, and a very simple test you can do is stand nice, straight up and down, keep your chest facing forward. I don't wanna lean back like this. Keep my shirt buttons level with the ground, and I'm gonna take my arms shoulder width apart, put my thumbs up toward the sky, and if there's a wall behind me, I'm gonna try to put my thumbs into that wall. Now you can see I can lift my hands fairly high. Some guys can go even behind their back when they're doing that. I'm not that flexible. But if you have a shoulder injury, you may only be able to get to here and your shoulders kind of lock up. Or maybe you'll have one arm that goes way up and the other arm doesn't. Well, if either arm can't get above your shoulders, then you're not gonna be able to have a high backswing. Because if I rotate in the golf swing while I'm doing that, that's as far back as I can go. If I can get about 30, 45 degrees above my shoulders, that is plenty high. I can go as high as I want in the golf swing, no problem at all. So do that test, and if you can't get your arms to elevate above your shoulders, don't worry about swinging high with your arms. It's not gonna be something that you're able to do. One little quick tip, if you do fail that test, take a tennis ball, don't do a golf ball, it'd be too hard, but take a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball, and what you'll do is you'll lay flat on the ground and you'll roll that ball on your back. That's gonna push into these muscles, it's gonna loosen those up. Josh, that is a co-founder of Top Speed Golf, he had the same issue. Couldn't lift his arms above his shoulders. He'd take a tennis ball, lacrosse ball, roll his back out, you go up and down and kind of loosen up that tissue and the muscle, and he was able to get his arms going from here all the way up well over his head now, and could now have his arms higher and picked up a little bit of swing speed doing that. So there is a solution, but it does take a little time and effort. So let's see what kind of a difference that makes. Again, I'm gonna make 2 swings. I have my flight scope running. Should be ready to go. All right, swing number one, I'm gonna keep my hands fairly low and not go very far back with my hands. All right, hit a nice solid shot right down the middle. And again, it's not saying that you can't hit good shots taking a shorter swing. It's just saying you're not gonna have as more of a free-flowing, effortless swing. You're gonna have to work hard for that distance with a shorter swing. So let's take a look at that one compared to this next swing, where I'm gonna go ahead and get those arms going well back higher, feeling like my arms move up. like they're kind of going up toward the sky as I make my backswing, and let's see what happens with the club head speed there. There we go, right down the middle of the fairway. Let's compare those two. So number one, again, I hit that well, but I had to work for my distance there. Let's see what the first one was. So on my lower arm shot, club head speed was 107.1, so I definitely dropped off some club head speed. And dead solid, carried it 259, total 267. The second swing, I put out the same amount of effort and energy. I didn't swing any harder when my arms went higher. I actually swung nice and fluid and easy. I went from 107 to 119.3. My carry distance went to 294 and 304 for the total. So in those two swings, I went from, let's see here, 267 to 304. That's a pretty daggone big difference there. We're talking, what would that be, 37 yards or so? So nothing to sneeze at. So do that test. If you can't get your arms high, work on loosening up the muscles in your back so that you can. If you have a shoulder injury, it may not be possible. If you can't get your arms high, just feel like those arms come up toward the sky there, make that big free-flowing arc. You're gonna get some easy speed. All right, so the next one is a big one, and we're gonna test our internal and external hip rotation, specifically in this left hip in the golf swing. So when you take your leg, keep it straight and pull it forward in front of your body here. Now what I'm doing is I'm keeping my pelvis or my hips facing straight ahead. I don't want to do this when I'm doing that test and move my hips. My hips are staying straight ahead, my belt buckle is staying straight ahead. I just lift my foot into the air and I'm going to internally rotate my left foot as much as I can, and then I'm going to externally rotate my foot. Now what that's telling me is, in the golf swing, if you look at this foot compared to my hips, as I rotate my hips into the follow through, what that foot is doing is it's turning inward in relationship to my hips. So that foot, as it's coming on through, is rotating in. If I do it from this angle, that foot is rotating in this way. Now you can see how my left hip is going this way, my foot is in. Now that's a big problem if you try to keep your foot still on the ground and I try to finish my swing. So if I keep my foot planted forward and I barely can rotate through the shot, my hips can't open, now I'm going to end up doing something like this and cutting off my swing. How many times do you see players that look like they've lost a little bit of range of motion and they end up doing one of these type swings where their hip just folds down and they don't really finish their swing, versus you watch everybody on tour and all of a sudden they're getting these long free-flowing swings, hips rotate all the way around. So if you fail this test, if your hip can't turn at least 45 degrees inward, you can't have your foot square. You can do one of two things. Everybody on the PGA Tour basically does it this way. When they come down, their heel lifts up off the ground, their foot swivels open, and they finish with their foot more open. On average on the PGA Tour, I've measured this. The foot may start square. On average, players end up with their foot 45 to 60 degrees open in the follow through. I don't see anybody, not a single person that I've measured almost 100 different players when I'm looking on slow motion footage. Nobody keeps their foot perfectly square like that in the follow through, where it doesn't rotate at all. If they do keep their foot facing forward some, you may see somebody like Jordan Spieth that does that. All right, he's trying to not move his foot and he just rolls it. Well, probably not the best thing to do for your ankle. So if you fail the internal rotation test, if you fail this little test we did, what you have to do, and there's really just no way around it, either open that foot up during the swing, which I find some players struggle to do, or open that foot up about 45 degrees at the start. Let that foot face forward. Now I can rotate all the way to here to where my hip and my foot are lined up straight, and just rotate a little bit more to my full finish. That makes it way easier for you to rotate through the shot. So again, let's try that out. I'm gonna keep my feet square. I'm gonna hit this golf ball, and when I finish my swing, my foot is not gonna rotate open at all. This is definitely not how I normally swing, but we're gonna show you how this just kills your distance. Now I hit that dead solid. That's about as good as I could ever hit one doing it that way. So if that doesn't have good numbers, I'm never gonna get to good numbers, because that thing was really nicely hit. My swing speed was 105.6, and my total distance was 258. So again, I just hit one 304. I know I have a lot more in the bag. Now let's do it the other way. I'm gonna open up my foot, and as I finish, I'm gonna let my body rotate all the way on around to where my hips and everything are letting the momentum of my body go toward the target. Now if I test this one out again, we know what's gonna happen here, but I'll go ahead and swing another one just to prove a point. There we go. Even on a miss hit, Not even as good, a little bit thin on the face. My swing speed went way up. I know I can just hear the sound of the ball coming off the face. And my total distance went up to 284. So even on a miss hit, 30 yards farther. And club head speed went up to 117, so 10 miles an hour or so faster there. So do that test. Again, if you can't rotate your foot in, you can either lift your foot and let it rotate during the swing, or you can start with it rotated open. I find everybody does better, or most players do better, if they start with the foot open. Maybe you don't like the way it looks, but you're gonna like the way it feels when you hit the fairway. Now finally, we're gonna test something that I rarely see people test, and that's your rotation from your neck, or your cervical spine. How much can I rotate to the right and to the left as I'm going through here? So what we'll do, I want you to go ahead, if you can set up against a wall with your shoulders against the wall, keep your shoulders nice and steady and level. Don't move your shoulders around very much. And then I want to keep my chin or head up high, and I'm going to rotate to the left as far as I can. Now if I'm going this way and I'm going to rotate down, let's imagine I'm hitting it towards you, I want to let my chin get all the way over my shoulder. A lot of times players can only rotate to here. Maybe they have a little bit of stiffness in their neck and they can't rotate on through. Well, what does that matter? In the backswing, in order to be able to see this golf ball and make a big shoulder turn, I have to let my chin come over my shoulder. So you see how my chin is over my shoulder now. If I can't get that kind of rotation, what's going to end up happening is my neck locks up here, and I'm going to have to turn my head away from the ball a little bit, or I'm going to say, okay, I don't want to do that, and I'm just going to shorten up my swing. Either way, I'm killing my distance. So do the test. If for any reason you have trouble rotating your neck to the left, again, do a little therapy, get with a physical trainer, physical therapist, loosen up the neck a little bit so you can rotate more easily. But if you can't do that, a little cheat here is that if I let just my left eye look at the ball, focusing on your head turning, but don't worry if your chin turns away a little bit. If you happen to barely lose a little sight of the golf ball, I would rather you do that and make a bigger turn and be able to see it with just my left eye than I would to shorten that turn, make a compact swing, and not swing through it. Because you're going to lose 30 or 40 yards when you do that. That's just what we tested. So make sure you go through that test. If you can't get the full range, do some exercises to get the full range, but then make sure you go ahead and let your head swivel a little bit and just look at the golf ball with your left eye. To prove that, and we've seen great players do this, you know, even look at Jack Nicklaus, he kind of set up that way a little bit with his golf swing. But I want to prove to you that you can hit some great golf shots doing this. Let's go ahead and make a swing here, and I'm going to let my head pivot a little bit and just look at that golf ball with my left eye as I go on the backswing. So watch my head on this one, and you're going to see how it rotates a little bit, which is completely fine. And I hit that one right down the middle, one of the best ones. So my head swiveled a little bit. It's not the end of the world. Is it the best thing to do? Probably not, but it's better to hit it 30 yards farther and let your head swivel than to go 30 yards shorter and try to keep your head still. So 116, 293 total distance there. So follow those tests. One thing that really kind of drives me nuts is when we're trying to work on our swing, but nobody ever takes the time to test you and see if you can actually perform these motions. Can you rotate your body? Can you lift your arms to get this swing that works best for you? All right, it's great to have you here today, and I have the perfect station set up to get your backswing looking really good. It's going to solve two problems. Number one problem I see is players getting the club too far inside in the backswing, and that causes them to get steep on the downswing and start to kind of come down over the top, really not getting it in the slot like we want to have. And number two is getting that good full turn, making sure that our hands go up, we have tons of power, and maybe you're not very flexible. Maybe you feel a little bit stiff, a little bit tight. Well, I'm going to show you a couple of tricks to get that good full backswing. Let's go and get started. All right, so the way I'm going to set up this drill is I'm going to go ahead and pick my target in the distance. I've come back behind my target. I've lined my club up with the direction I'm going to hit it. Now I want to put this club about a foot and a half behind my golf ball. That way, if I make a practice swing, I'm not going to hit the butt end of this club as I'm starting back. Now from there, I've set my angle, the lie angle of my club, just on this club on the ground, like I was going to hit on that. So the sweet spot of my club is right over top of the shaft, and I've set the lie angle of this stick, or the angle of this stick I put in the ground, at the same angle of my club. So technically, if I was to bring this club back kind of perfectly on plane. So I get lined up well here. I bring it back perfectly on plane. It would be right on that stick, and my club would be pointing right to my target there now. Now I could be off a couple millimeters here or there, but it's just the general idea. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a backswing where we feel like our hands, and this is actually a big misconception. When I wanna bring the club a little bit more out, I don't wanna get it sucked back into the inside and doing this. I wanna make sure that the hands go a little bit in and the club head stays out. A lot of times I'll see players try to pick that club head up, their hands go out, and what ends up happening is, yeah, the hands go out, but the club still goes in. So a lot of times if you're bringing this club inside, it doesn't mean that you're bringing your hands inside. A lot of times it can be the opposite of that. Your hands can be going out this direction and the club can be the one getting sucked in. Well, there's momentum in the golf swing. And a lot of times we think, well, I don't want to get steep, so I need to bring it more inside. I need to get it in the slot. I'm going to do that in the backswing. But if you do that, if you do this mistake like we're talking about here, the momentum of this club gets deep, and then as you change direction, the momentum wants it to swing back steeper, back more over the top. So the more you go inside in the backswing, the more that kicks the club on top in the downswing. We want to reverse that. That way it makes it easier to get in the slot and shallow that club out. So again, here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to set up to my golf ball here. I'm going to make my backswing. I'm going to pause when my club's parallel to the ground. And I want to see just like that. My hands are slightly inside this stick. My club head is slightly outside this stick. And I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but to be honest, the number of people that I see that overdo this in the backswing is very, very few. I rarely see anybody do that. I see tons of players do way too much of this though, and then come that way. So we're gonna do that about 5 times, and I'm really gonna feel in that backswing, hands in, club out. Now on the downswing, I'm gonna go real slow here. I'm checking it. In the downswing, I'm gonna let that change the opposite direction. So now my hands can go ahead and come out a little bit, and that club, the momentum of that club wants to swing under, get more from the inside. Now, I don't want you to hit golf balls doing this. I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. I'm a trained professional, as they say on TV. So don't hit golf balls doing this. It's so easy to accidentally just clip this stick in the downswing, and that thing's gonna shoot into your leg or come into your eye. You definitely don't want to do that. I'm gonna do that here. Again, I don't want you to do this at home. Do not hit golf balls doing this, but I want to show you that this drill can work in a real golf swing. That's something that is important to understand. You don't have to do it for yourself, but it's important to understand that this can work, and you can actually, it would be possible to hit good shots making this type of a drill, even though you don't want to do it with the actual stick there. Let's go ahead and try one out here. There we go, nice and solid. Just 5 feet to the right of where I was aimed. Pretty nice shot. So again, you definitely don't want to hit any swings. You don't want to hit any golf balls doing this drill. It's way too dangerous doing that. But I wanted to show you that this is actually a plane and a motion that can work. Now the second part of this is the backswing piece, the power. If you want to hit with some power, you have to load up the shoulders. So I have to get my shoulders turning. I have to get my body loading up. And in order to get as easy as power as possible, especially if I'm a little bit tighter, I have to let my hips rotate more, and I have to let my hands go up. A good easy way to add 5 to 10 miles or 5 to 10 yards to your drives, 5 or 10 yards to your irons, is by thinking about those hands being a Ferris wheel, so coming straight up and down, and that club being a Ferris wheel, so my club head going, that's the visual, it's not really what's happening. But in the backswing, I want to visualize my club being a Ferris wheel, coming straight over my head. And now all of a sudden this club travels a little bit longer, my hands travel a little bit longer in the backswing, and I have a little extra time in the downswing to accelerate. Now if I think of it more of a merry-go-round, eventually as I go to the inside, again, not only am I going to have a tendency to get more in here where I don't want to be, as my hands go around my body, my chest gets in the way, especially if you're not super flexible, it gets really tight. Now all of a sudden my hands are way down here, I have a lot less time versus up here to accelerate the club. Now I found most players can easily elevate their arms, and a great test for this is if you just stand straight up and down, put your arms out to in front of your body. If you can lift your arms up above your head, well, I can lift my club up vertically above my head here. If you have a shoulder issue, and you can only lift your arms to here, you can't go on up, then you may have to be a little bit more across your body. But again, I find very few players that's really an issue with it. So now I'm gonna do a couple more of these practice swings, and not only am I gonna focus on the club head staying outside my hands, I'm gonna imagine it going straight up. I'm gonna imagine me getting this big full turn here and getting a lot of power. Now again, you wanna do this in your practice swings, get comfortable with that, and you're gonna remove this stick. Definitely, I can't reiterate it enough, it's a very dangerous drill, and you don't wanna do that. I do not recommend that for anybody, to hit balls with that stick there, because you could easily, again, whack that stick and it could stick in your head, your eye, your leg. Lots of bad things could happen with that drill. So I got the feeling of it now, and now I'm just gonna go ahead and complete that backswing, get my hands nice and high, and I get an extra few yards of distance. There we go, hit that one well. Now there's another piece to this if we want to square up the club and get that nice draw. If you're wanting to get from the inside, the last thing you want to do is have that face hold open, and now at contact my face is pointing way out to the right. Well, all of a sudden I'm from the inside, my face is open, that ball is going to go right of right. What we have to learn to do is to square up the face properly by using the proper wrist mechanics here. I have to rotate my wrist in a very specific way that the pros are doing this, and I can't reiterate enough, you're gonna wanna learn this. You're gonna wanna know how to square this up. This is one of the secrets to playing fantastic golf. I have a great bonus video for you. It's called the tennis racket drill. I'm gonna walk you through exactly how to square those wrists up, how to square this face up early, just like the pros are doing. I'm gonna play a preview of that here in a second. All you need to do is go ahead and click the card that pops up on the screen. If you don't see that card, don't worry. Go down to the description below, click the link there, and you'll get instant access. I can't wait to show you the tennis racket drill. Let's go ahead and get started right now. Good player problems. We're going to talk about shallowing that club shaft out as we're starting down, as we're doing this rotating of the face that we worked on in the last video. As we start this downswing, what you'll see with basically all of the top players is, instead of coming kind of over the top and letting the hands come out away from their body, letting the club come out away from their body, again coming down steep into the ball and then having to open up, kind of fillet open the face and add loft to it, the flattening of the shaft should happen as soon as we start down. So as we start this downswing, what we want to have happening here, you can imagine that if I draw a line from the hosel of my club up through my right elbow, that's my swing plane line, my elbow plane. As I go to the top of the swing, I'm going to be slightly above that. And then as I start down, I want my hands to start to shallow out. I want the club to shallow out inside of this elbow plane. And at the same time, I'm going to be